Welcome once again to an old favorite that I haven't done in a very long time, but I am back with one of my guests from last year, sort of, catching up. That is Roger Malcom. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, thanks.
So, we were actually talking about this off camera, that I think we last got together this time last year. So what have you been up to in 2016?
Well, I took time off from wrestling. I took 5 months off, so that pretty big absence for me. I got back in September, so I took a break in April.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, everybody needs a break from wrestling every now and again.
Right. That's an interesting thing. I was having a discussion recently about that with a friend about roller derby and how they have an off season, but they would prefer, or she would prefer, that they didn't have an off season. And I was saying the same. We were talking or comparing wrestling and roller derby, and the added bonus to having an off season is you get to heal and recuperate, of course, but then you get out of practice, so
yeah,
you gotta work a little harder when you come back, I guess.
Well, I believe it was Pat Patterson who said, "Wrestling's like riding a bike; you never forget."
Well, that was a concern when I got back after taking 5 months off and, not having wrestled that long anyway, was whether or not I could just step back in the ring and do it. And that's what I did. I didn't go back to training. I just got back in the ring. And it was said that my ring awareness might have been a little off, but otherwise I seemed to step back in just fine.
Yeah. So I heard from one of your friends that you and Eric Draven are the new North American Tag Team Champions.
Well, we were the NWA Mid-America Champions.
Mid-America Champions, sorry.
Yeah, we were, and then they had a match when I wasn't there, and thanks to our manager, Mortimer Blankenship III, they lost the titles. So...
Well, that sucks.
Last night we had 2 matches, singles matches. I had a match, and Eric Draven had a match, and we both secured pinfall victories over Van Mardigan to get us placement in a triple threat tag team match January 7th against Dance and Dazzle and the King's Court.
Well, you can get the titles back that you never lost.
Right, that's exactly my point. I never lost it.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about teaming with Eric Draven.
Talk a little bit about teaming with Eric Draven?
Yeah. What's it? What's it like? Is he how helpful it is?
How what?
How helpful it is? What's it like teaming with? I would say a veteran like Draven.
Well, I think he's been wrestling for 24 years, so it's an honor to be able to have a tag team partner with that kind of experience and that skill level. So I'm always learning. I'm always, and the fact that he's willing to have me as his tag team partner is a great, honor as well. So if it was a lot of respect, I feel like, coming from him for him to want me as his tag team partner. So
I can imagine. Now, are you still managed by Morty, or?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you? How do I phrase this question? Do you feel like having a manager would help. Do you feel like having Morty there, especially after you took your hiatus, helped you get readjusted more faster to being back in the ring?
Well, I would say probably it does. I do enjoy having a manager, or especially Morty. I can't think of anybody else managing me besides Morty, but I do appreciate having him ringside, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I've always felt that, especially nowadays, managers are, like, not as present as they should be because they could help talent tremendously.
Yes.
Especially the new ones.
It's like that argument, like, you know, some managers, the manager is there to get the talent over, right? But then some people like argue that managers are there to get themselves over. So there's that fine line, I guess, they have to walk, where they need to be a presence. They can't just be non-existent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But you're always going to have criticisms, I guess, so...
Yeah.
I appreciate having Morty there. That was one of the things when I took my break. He was asking me when I was coming back, and I told him if he could get me a booking, you know, I'd be back as long as he was still managing me. And so that's what happened.
Well, that's great. And I feel like, you know, managers, I mean, yes, that managers are supposed to let the talent get over, but especially like if you're given a manager and you're new to the territory, then the manager should use his skill, like his overness, to get you over.
Well, the manager needs to be over as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
If the manager's not over, it's not going to do you any good to have him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So they have to get themselves over. So it's, like I said, it's just a fine line where, you know,
yeah.
You don't want to take too much attention away from what's going on inside the ring or the talent that you're managing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's like,
go ahead.
It's like a lost art.
Yeah, I agree.
Manager, you know,
yeah.
Days of Bobby Heenan, you know. I guess some people, you know, talk about Paul Heyman and how great he is, and he does a great job, but he's not Bobby Heenan, you know.
That's
I guess
yeah.
I guess the thing about Bobby Heenan was that he was able to get in a ring and perform, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He could probably wrestle better than a lot of the wrestlers. He just never did because that wasn't the way they utilized him, you know. So like Andre the Giant could do drop kicks, but they're like, there's no reason to be doing drop kicks when you're a giant. That kind of like defeats the purpose of being a giant.
That's true. Yeah. And to your point, when Paul Heyman is asked or told that he's the greatest manager, he even says, "No, Bobby Heenan is."
Oh, does he say that?
He's went on record saying that he's not the greatest manager. Bobby Heenan is the greatest manager.
Well, I agree. I think Bobby Heenan is the greatest manager professional wrestling's ever seen, but that's just my opinion too.
I think that Paul Heyman is definitely an old school manager.
Yeah.
Even today, he still has the shades of giving old school promos with the amount of times that he plugs the date.
He keeps my attention, you know.
Oh, yeah.
When he's talking on the mic, he holds it.
Yeah. I mean, he's learned from the greats, so he should know how to, you know.
Right, yeah, he's been around for a long time.
Exactly, yeah. Well, as we now shift from manager talk to, recently I've been doing, you know, the state of address. Like, I've looked at all the companies from WWE to Global Force Wrestling and did, you know, the state of address, like the State of the Union almost, but instead it's the state of the company. In your opinion, what is the state of the independent wrestling in the U.S.?
Well, it seems to, you know, I really don't know because I only know the territory, the area I'm in. You know,
what?
It seems to be growing and strong. You know, there's a lot of talent out there.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is you know, the money's not really there. I guess the crowds aren't really there, depending on where you're at. You know, some states still have these really hot crowds. You know.
Yeah.
But
well,
of course, it depends on the product, how good the product is, and what you know. There's different types of product that's being offered today.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just an overload. So,
well,
the idea that you can start a new promotion and try to get the fan base. I mean, that's just like such a risk, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll try and make it easy for you. Well, then, would you be able to name one thing that your particular market does good that you've seen, or promotions in your particular market does good, and one thing that those particular promotions can improve upon?
Well, I know, like, NWA Supreme, where I wrestle, I know we offer a more traditional product or style, and I know from people family members and friends that have come watch me wrestle, they identify that and they appreciate it, and like they've lost touch with professional wrestling since the evolution of it, since the 90s and everything, into the 2000s. Like, it just pushed a lot of people away because it was, I mean, a lot of it was pretty much garbage television. You know, it wasn't professional wrestling, and so like, these are people I'm saying that wouldn't normally ever turn it on the television to watch, but they came and watched me wrestle, and from the start of the card to the end of the card, they enjoyed the entire show, you know? So it wasn't just my match that they enjoyed, and they weren't just saying that because they came to watch me. They enjoyed all the wrestlers, you know? And I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to hear that. So that was something that I really liked to hear, is how it reminded them a lot of when they were younger and watched it. And I had family members that came to watch me wrestle that grew up watching Dick the Bruiser and Cowboy Bob Ellis wrestle. So, you know, for them to watch it and really enjoy it and appreciate it, I mean, it means a lot, you know?
Yeah.
They didn't like, it just, they had only good things to say.
Well, that's great. That's great. That, you know, that must have made you feel good.
Well, yeah, of course. You know, it's nice. It's nice to have someone come to pay, or, you know, someone that's paying money to come see you wrestle. You know, even if it's family. I mean, it's even better if it's family and they're still willing to pay to get in for free. You know. That's something I really appreciate too, is that when people have come to watch me wrestle, they don't expect to be comped because they're family or anything. So, you know, that's really an issue I have with independent wrestling, is that people want to get people in for free. And it's like, how's that helping? I mean, I guess it gets people in the crowd, but it's not really helping us out. You know, giving away something for free never really helps you out that much. Yeah,
that's true.
Unless it's some kind of like promotional deal, you know. Yeah. And then the promotion, you know, helps offset the cost of, you know, giving away free tickets or whatever.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Well, since the last time we spoke, I believe the name of your hometown company has changed from AWA Supreme to NWA Supreme.
It was NWA Supreme when we last talked as well. That changed almost the beginning of last year, I think. Around the beginning of last year.
Oh. Huh.
But that is true. We are an affiliate of the National Wrestling Alliance.
Well, I know I never asked you this question. What does it mean to you to be a part of the NWA?
It's something I never imagined at all. Like, I never really thought about it, and now that I am a part of it, I mean, it is like a high honor. It's unbelievable to think about it, that, you know, I know that the National Wrestling Alliance doesn't have the same prestige as it did back in the 70s and the 80s, but that's the whole point, I guess, now is that it's being rebuilt to have that prestige again. And I mean, it still has the name. It's still the oldest, governing body in professional wrestling history. So it's pretty unbelievable.
I see you're at a loss for words.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I can just keep repeating the same words over and over. I'm not going to say much more.
You're the first paparazzi to not know what to say.
That was the other thing is, I believe last year when we spoke, I had my match with, my big match with Rob Conway was coming up on our biggest show of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I debuted as Roger Malcom. So I dropped the paparazzi from my name. And this year, on January 27th, it's at the Point in Seymour, Indiana, is our biggest show again. And as of right now, it's up in the air who our opponents will be. We have a shot. Was it last month? We won a 16 team tournament for a shot at the NWA World Heavyweight titles, Tag Team World Heavyweight titles, if I made that clear. And I'm not sure when we're going to get that shot, but the holders of the titles are the Iron Empire, which is Matt Riviera and Rob Conway. So it's possible that this year that's who our opponents will be, but there's no, it's not set in stone yet. There's no contract signed or anything like that.
Wow, that could be, you could end up being the NWA Supreme and NWA World Tag Team Champions by the end of January.
That's possible. Now, the NWA Supreme Tag Team titles have been deactivated since we have the NWA Mid-America Tag Team titles in the company. Those are the only titles that are currently in NWA Supreme. So.
Makes sense.
But it is possible that Custom Made could be the NWA Mid-America Tag Team Champions and the NWA World Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. That is possible come January.
Wow, that's I'm sure it'd be much deserved.
It's a little surreal to think about.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to have you put on your thinking cap, and if you could bring some resemblance to, like, I can tell by the names that you mentioned in this interview thus far alone that you are somewhat of a student of the game. Ooh, if I'll attack this question this way. If you were at the training center, and a new guy, or you were, doing a seminar at the training center, and they asked, who do you watch when you watch footage? Who would you say?
Well, Tito Santana's always an answer there. I love Tito Santana. It's a long list. From American wrestlers to Japanese wrestlers to British wrestlers, Canadian wrestlers, and Mexican wrestlers. Right now, I've been watching a lot of stuff from the 80s, early WWF era. I like the traditional stuff. That's something I've been discussing, is that, like, you got guys that come into professional wrestling nowadays, and they're only watching the current products, and they're, like, stealing, like, moves from the current product, and it just, I don't know why that bothers me so much, but it just bothers me a lot. And then I feel like if you watch stuff that, like, people have not forgotten about, but, it's just not being pushed all the time on television, and you, like, see stuff that's not being utilized today, it seems like it certainly doesn't bother me as much to borrow from those guys as much as it bothers me to borrow from like the current product that's on the television now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's like I've seen guys come through and they're just like imitating, Prince Devitt, what's his name? Finn Balor, what's his name?
Yeah.
How does he say it?
Yeah, Finn Balor.
I'll still call him Prince Devitt. So anyway, it's just, I don't know, and like the body paint, like he came out with that body paint, and then all of a sudden there's all these indie guys painting their bodies up, and it's like, I don't know. I guess it's like a lack of originality on their part, and that kind of bothers me in a way. I don't know why it bothers me. It doesn't really bother me. It's just like, I just expect more,
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't bother me because it's not affecting me or anything like that.
Yeah. Well.
So I don't know.
I think I forget who said it, but I remember somebody saying that it's basically they see what they think could get them on WWE TV, and then they reuse it to try and get noticed.
Right, yeah. That makes, that could be some kind of logic that someone like that would use. Yeah, of course. That's kind of what I think, too, though, is that, the opposite. I think if I get lucky and, someone's watching me that is, possibly a scout or something, and they see my style, that they might, think, the same thing, here's a guy that's not trying to copy off all the current product or current styles, but it might be a detriment to my career, or it might not be. I don't know, but it's just the way my approach. And that's one thing you mentioned teaming with Eric Draven. He's older than I am, but at the same time, even though we are almost different from different generations, we're not really. We kind of bleed over into the same generation, But
yeah.
He grew up watching different product than I did, and he doesn't really appreciate the product that I appreciate. But I bring him stuff, and I tell him stuff, and I show him stuff that he's like, I never liked that, but that's pretty good, or there is some good stuff in that. And he's like, I never liked that team or that wrestler, but I'm helping him, or not. Maybe I'm helping him open his mind up a little more to it because. I realize the product in WWF is very cartoony, the muscle bound guys, and they didn't do a lot of real technically sound stuff in the ring, and that's what a lot of people I think remember it as. But there's a lot of amazing talent that was there as well that were putting on these amazing matches that you can learn from. I mean, just like Randy Savage, and obviously there's just so many more names I could say there, like Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude. Those guys could really work, Ted DiBiase. I'm a big Ted DiBiase fan.
Yeah, I saw you dropping your fist drops.
Yeah, I love the fist drop.
Yeah,
actually, you can't see, but I actually busted my knuckles open last night, yeah. I work third shift, so I get confused on if it's last night or this morning, but it was last night. So anyway, across Van Mardigan's head, I guess he's got a pretty hard skull, and I know this from experience. It's not wise to headbutt him or get in a headbutt challenge with him. You'll lose. And my knuckle kind of lost too, I guess, because I was bleeding afterwards, and I was like, that's interesting.
Well, that's an interesting story.
Well, I had to get them worn down pretty good before after I had to beat them and then make sure that Eric Draven wasn't going to have too much trouble with them. So
yeah. Now to move to what you were move back to what you were saying. Not to offer a cheap. To offer a cheap plug. In the in the other videos on the channel, one of which is a Let's Play series, particularly with World Class in 1983, the reason why I bring this up is because in the most recent video that I recorded yesterday, I had the Freebirds stand in the ring without an interviewer and cut a promo. Why? Because it was different. Because everybody else cut promos with an interviewer, and, well, simple. Logically, it's believable that in World Class, the Freebirds could have cut a promo without Mark Lawrence or whoever the interviewer was, and, they could have provided a logical explanation, but the reason why I did it is because I wanted the Freebirds promos to be remembered. And making them different than everybody else's promos would make it easier for the people to remember them. Point is, uniqueness is remembered in wrestling. Would you agree?
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. I mean, there's so many examples of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody always mentions Jake the Snake Roberts and how, he didn't yell or shout in his promos, he'd get that real quiet kind of whisper to him.
Yeah.
He'd draw you in, and then he'd get real intense on you,
Yeah, exactly.
And that stood out, and people, as I'm proving it right now, are still talking about it to this day.
That is true. That is true. And that's one of the reasons. I actually think it was Jim Cornette that said, what I said earlier about being unique and not just doing what you see on WWE TV to try and get noticed, be different. Because that actually sounds like something Jimmy would say, because he loves to complain.
Well, another thing too is, like, I don't just go to professional wrestling to learn or to borrow from, obviously, as an artist, you borrow from everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's something a lot of guys could learn, is not just going to wrestling to, pick up things, Obviously, you gotta go to wrestling to get moves, you know what I mean? But personality and your character and everything like that, you can pull it from anywhere.
I agree.
I think that's something too, is like guys just, if you try to like copy just one guy, you're just going to be that cheap imitation. But if you like pull little bits and pieces from different people, you become such a. This is an example. In Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when Richard Williams was designing Roger Rabbit, he pulled. I don't know if you know this, but he pulled like his ears and like different elements of Roger Rabbit are from other cartoon characters that people already knew. So when they would look at Roger Rabbit, the public would feel like they recognized the character, even though he was completely original. Because they borrowed all these familiar pieces and put them and built the character. It comes you feel like you've always known him. It's like it's a subliminal thing. You don't realize. So I think that you can. As a wrestler, you can do that. You can pull from so many different things, or as an actor. But in professional wrestling, you have the ability to do so much more. It's just a blank canvas anytime you walk out there, basically. So you can pull from wherever, and if it doesn't work, you can always change it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, I know we could probably do an entire video on the things that are lacking in the business today and the things that may be overexposed in the business today.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I'm qualified to say those kind of things necessarily, but yeah, I could say, I have an opinion, of course, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point. But to move to more of a positive subject, so recently actually, something just popped into my head. I don't know if you are big into the video libraries of the shoot companies, like Kayfabe Commentaries and Rob Feinstein.
Yeah, I'll watch them, but of course it depends on who it is. You know, like the most recent, I watched that The Feud. It was an older one, of course. It was Greg the Hammer Valentine and Tito Santana discussing their feud.
Yep, I know which one you're talking about.
It was great. It was absolutely great. I never heard Tito be so, like he was so confident about what he was saying, how they were, selling out shows. They were the only ones selling out houses besides Hulk Hogan. Hogan was selling out everywhere he was going, but Tito and Greg were selling out as well. And I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Pardon the cat fight. I don't know if you picked the cat fight up, but
as long as I don't hear King scream puppies, we're good. Yeah, but, what was it? Kayfabe Commentaries has their own series with Raven, where Raven does, Raven's Wrestler Rescue, where he gives independent wrestlers, facelift, and it actually gives them gimmicks. I'm thinking it's from some sort of a training school, whether it's his training school or one that, they're working with for the series. But I guess my question is, number one, have you heard about this series? And number two, do you think that gimmicks are missing in independent wrestling?
Okay, I have not heard of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Are gimmicks missing in professional wrestling? Do you mean like on Vince's show? Are gimmicks missing? I mean, because they're generic, right?
Yeah.
And on the independent level, I think I don't know if they're really missing, because people. The guys have gimmicks. Some of them are pretty good. Personally, I'm still developing myself as a personality and everything in the ring. I have a pretty good idea, but integrating it into my character, integrating it is like a slow process to me.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. That'd be awesome though. Like the idea that, I'd love to meet Raven and discuss things with him and have him try to further build me. Eric Draven actually used to ride with Raven back in the day when they worked for ECW. And
wow. So that must have been some riding.
Well, he was telling. That's where he got his name. Actually, Eric Draven didn't get his name from the Crow. He actually got it from Raven because he had been riding with Raven, and he took his middle name, and it had a D in it, and he took the D out and put it in front of Raven and became Draven, and so his middle name became Eric, and so he became Eric Draven. That's how he got his name.
Huh.
But then the Crow came out, and so everybody thought he was, he had stolen it from the Crow. And then he was telling me how, after the Crow came out, he started painting his face like the Crow, and then Sting changed and his gimmick and started painting his face like the Crow. So then everybody started accusing Eric Draven of stealing from Sting, and he's like, I was already doing that. But, that's just the way the world works, right?
Yeah. Well, the gimmick from the episode that I watched, and I only mentioned this because the Greg Valentine Tito Santana DVD that you saw was a Kayfabe Commentaries series. He worked up the guy to somewhat of a David Bowie tribute type. Like he made him in his words, look like David Bowie, or some sort of a David Bowie-esque character.
Okay. It's kind of like Shinsuke Nakamura is like Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury into a wrestler, right? Is that what you're kind of saying? Like he borrowed those elements?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Bowie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I know as far as an over-the-top gimmick, there is no more over-the-top gimmick than Broken Matt Hardy. But do you think that over-the-top gimmicks like that are missing from wrestling, or do you think it's better off that they're not in wrestling as much?
Well, I can tell you, I tuned back in to watch the Hardy Boys. I was a big fan of the Hardy Boys when they debuted and they had the plaid tights and everything.
Uh-huh.
I really liked them then. The early 2000s when they were doing the matches with Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys. I was a big fan then. I'm not a big fan of it now. I kind of, I appreciate more traditional wrestling now. But I did tune back in to watch the Jeff and Matt's match where they went to, I think, was it Matt's house they went to, or?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I watched that, and I watched Bound from Glory where they had their tag match, and, I'm a Hardy Boys fan. I don't know how you can't be. Those guys are amazing. Like, the amount of, I don't know, I think I appreciate it. I appreciate the Broken Matt Hardy gimmick, and it's great. I mean, I don't know. If everybody acted like that, it'd probably be terrible, of course, So it's that balance, right?
Yeah.
That balance.
Uh-huh.
So, no, I appreciate the Broken Matt Hardy thing. Because it's like, it's so out there, you just don't know what he's going to say next.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's what Randy Savage captured, was nobody knew what Randy Savage was going to say next.
Yeah.
And that goes, that's, yeah, I love that, so.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if the guy can pull it off.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a guy that's given a gimmick that he's not, it's not for him.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Or he just...
Well, it's definite that Matt can pull this gimmick off.
Right.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, I just want to say to Sean Oliver and or Raven, if you're listening, I got a perfect guest for episode 4 of Raven's Wrestler Rescue right here, and that's my guest. So if you're listening, you got a perfect project for your next episode.
I was a big fan of Raven too when he was in WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I always thought he never seemed to wrestle, but I wasn't able to pay for those pay-per-views back then either when he probably was wrestling on the pay-per-views, but. Yeah, I was a big fan of Raven's flock,
Yeah.
And the guy's really smart, too, right? So, I appreciate intellectuals, so...
Oh, yeah, I've heard the same. I've heard nothing but good things about Scott Levy. Well, also just a cheap plug that if you're listening and you're interested in Raven's Wrestler Rescue, it's available on kayfabecommentaries.com. That, and also the DVD that you mentioned, Greg Valentine and Tito Santana reliving their feud from the 1980s.
So are you saying that the same company did both of those?
Yep.
They do both of them?
Yep.
Okay. That shows you, I'll watch them, but I'm not even,
I don't know if they still do the feud recaps. I know they also did Nikita and Magnum's feud.
Okay.
But I don't know if they've done any other feuds other than those two that we've mentioned. But now I also want to get your thoughts on something else. Speaking of Broken Matt Hardy, he appeared at Final Battle a few weeks ago and effectively challenged the Young Bucks. That means that the Hardys will be facing the Young Bucks over WrestleMania weekend for Ring of Honor.
Oh wow, that's cool. Now, have they've never faced before?
Well, I'm pretty sure it was an Omega show Matt's
okay.
yeah, but they've never faced on iPay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
This would be the first time on iPay-per-view them facing. The last time was just for the crowd in North Carolina.
All right.
Yeah. Now, Mike, the reason why I bring this up is not just to plug the match, but also, do you think that this would do this type of, I guess, co-promotion, considering Jeff and Matt still work in TNA, would finally give TNA some good publicity?
I guess it can't hurt them. I mean, all publicity is good publicity.
Well, TNA proves that not all good publicity is good publicity.
People say a lot of bad things about them, don't they?
Most of my videos are jokes about TNA.
Okay.
But I've gotten better. So, once again, plugging away at 2017, you know, 2016 has been quite a year for pro wrestling, and 2017, if not just for the Hardys versus the Young Bucks, it's starting off on the right foot. But I also wanted to get your thoughts on the rumored possibility of WWE raiding the Indies again, particularly Ring of Honor of Talent, sort of like they did with New Japan last year, or earlier this year.
Yeah. You say you want my opinion on it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I quit watching New Japan when Sinski left. I'm a huge fan of Sinski. When he left, I just kind of stopped watching it altogether. I didn't expect to, and I've watched. I don't know. I think I've watched maybe only 3 of his matches in NXT, and it just doesn't. I don't know. I just don't care anymore. I guess is the point. I feel like it's too contained. I don't know. They know what they're doing more than I do, but I liked it. I like watching them in Japan. In New Japan. Now, with them raiding the talent, the rosters of smaller companies, that's what they've always done. That's how he killed the territories. And then it's not going to stop, basically, until the public decides they don't want to watch the product that's being, forced down their throats on television, basically. But as long as they've got a better talent always coming in, they're always going to be putting on better, I want to say better matches, but I don't really know if that's true. I mean, because that's the thing, is I feel like Sinski was putting on better matches in Japan than he is in NXT, but, maybe that's not true. Well, I noticed, NXT's got, Eric Young and Bobby Roode.
Yep.
And, those are guys that were in TNA that I would assume probably are a lot happier that they're in NXT. Yeah. I don't know if the money's better or not. I don't know about that stuff, but it's got more prestige, doesn't it? NXT's a lot more respected. I've got a lot of people that tell me that I should watch it, that they think I would appreciate it, and I don't know. I'm real hesitant. Like I said, I've watched some stuff, and I'll check out certain wrestlers that I have interest in if they're on NXT, but otherwise, I don't just sit down and watch the program. There's something about the commentating that just mind-numbing. I get so tired of it. So,
Yeah.
That's why I don't tend to watch new product. It's the commentating is so, I think, terrible nowadays.
Well, to come to bat for WWE, 2016 has been one of their better years in the ring, but I've always felt that NXT was more traditional than the main roster because, all you've heard about is how Triple H is a student of the game. Yeah. And you could really see it in NXT because it's the complete and total opposite of Vince and the main roster.
Well, that was the thing, too. In the late 90s, Triple H was my favorite wrestler to watch. Everybody, when, The Rock came up, everybody loved The Rock. And I was, a teenage kid, and I was like, The Rock sucks. He can't wrestle as good as Triple H. Triple H is a much better wrestler than The Rock. The Rock was amazing on the microphone. Incredible charisma. And I love The Rock. I do. But back when I was a teenager, I hated him. And I thought Triple H was, basically the best wrestler in the world. And so I still have respect for Triple H. I think he's an incredible talent. And he gets a lot of heat from the fans, but he seems to be doing great things with NXT. So, and that's something that's brought up to me is like, Triple H is in charge of it, and it's like, yeah, well, I know that, but I'm still not watching it. But
and I will agree that maybe Shinsuke is a little toned down in NXT, but I also think being in NXT is going to continue his career and extend his career a lot longer than it would have been in New Japan.
Right. That's a good point because, the strong style that he was working in Japan, it's brutal.
I agree.
I have a friend that once said to me, that's why things like Mitsuhiro Misawa happen, and accidents happen, but yeah, it's true. Misawa was, the matches he had with Kobashi, were just. How does any human being survive that? I don't really know. It's intense stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It certainly is probably prolonging his career by working a toned down style.
Yeah. And I also wanted to mention that as of right now, I don't know if to be fair, yes, WWE did raid New Japan last year by taking basically the Bullet Club and Shinsuke Nakamura.
Right.
But
did AJ come over last year as well? Is that AJ's first, or it was last year?
Yeah, he came over in January with Shinsuke and Carl and Doc.
Okay.
He left with them.
I don't know the time frame when they came over.
But from what I've been hearing, it's more likely that WWE will not be able to do the same thing with Ring of Honor because Jay Lethal is very likely to sign back with Ring of Honor, and Kyle O'Reilly most likely already did sign back with ROH after winning his world title back at Final Battle. And the Young Bucks also re-signed with, I believe, New Japan. I don't think they signed with Ring of Honor. I think their contract is with New Japan. And they actually signed, from what I heard, a very, very lofty contract to remain with New Japan and Ring of Honor. But from what I'm hearing, and from what the websites are reporting, the big loss for Ring of Honor will be Adam Cole, as he is likely headed to the Performance Center next year with Steve Corino, and Chris Hero likely signed back as well. Or, no, Chris Hero and Steve Corino, Chris Hero's the only one that definitely signed. Steve Corino has not signed as of yet, I don't think, and Adam Cole has not signed as of yet either, but both Corino and Cole are likely to sign. I'm unsure about Nigel McGuinness too, because I heard Nigel might be heading to WWE as well. So it seems like WWE may be targeting non-wrestlers more than the active ones from Ring of Honor.
I was going to say something about NXT. One thing I think I've noticed about NXT is the women's division in NXT.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather strong, isn't it? And am I correct in saying that the NXT women's roster helped influence the main roster in changing from divas to women's wrestling? Or
yes, you are.
Is that true? I mean, did it?
Yes.
It seemed like they were putting on better matches and stuff in NXT, and it kind of like floated to the top, right?
It did. That is true.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's something I would like to point out is that women's wrestling, like if you go back to the 80s, like when the WWF brought over the Jumping Bomb Angels, they were amazing. They blew away. Like there was still good American talent, women wrestling at the time, but they worked a work rate was just off the charts. And I think you see that more nowadays in America with women. I guess it's always been that way in Japan. The women's wrestling in Japan's always been really strong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the whole diva thing, like I hated that. I hated it that they were just eye candy. That it was just these like women, skinny clad women that were going out there that just they looked horrible in the ring. They shouldn't have been in the ring wrestling. And yet that was the way it was for so many years, So it's really good to see women wrestlers that actually, I remember like watching Victoria. Is it Lisa Marie Vaughn?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I just remember watching her and just being like, man, that woman can wrestle, And it's like, I like to see more of that, So that's good that there's more women wrestling taking place. Or at least I think that's what's taking place,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree. And I will admit that, yes, during the height of the Divas division in WWE, I did also watch TNA, and even though they were, booking the women a little bit better, I always paid more attention to WWE because they were always on more. And I will say that because of how WWE booked the women, I really didn't look at the women's division as anything other than, a filler or a bathroom break. Like, I thought it was a joke.
I mean, they still had some good talent here and there, but yeah, the overall matches were very good. Like, TNA was doing much better with the knockout division.
I agree.
They had Gail Kim and Awesome Kong.
I agree.
These, pretty good matches, so.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. But that was, like, I guess what I'm saying is that WWE stopped me from being a fan of the knockouts in TNA because of how they were booking women. Back then. Not so much anymore now because, both divisions went through transition and I mean, both of them are pretty good still, but I think WWE may finally have taken the edge over TNA as far as the women's division goes.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah.
It really helps, too. Charlotte, Ric Flair's daughter, that, I know it's just simply because she's Ric Flair's daughter and she can wrestle, that's, to me, that's a big draw,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that, when you have that, and then I don't even know, I was watching, whatever the last pay-per-view was, I watched a little bit of it, and, I don't even know most of the women's wrestlers in WWE right now. There's so many of them. I mean, I'm learning them, I'm learning their names and stuff, but it's just one after another that I'm just like, who's she? So...
Well, if I'm right, I think both Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks spent time in Shimmer before making their way to WWE, or at least I know Becky worked over in the UK and in Europe. I think, now that I think about it, I do think both of them, but I think if either one of them did, I think Sasha was the one who did. So, that gave her a little bit of attention before she got to WWE. Now I'm gonna push the ball into your court. I don't know if you have had your last show of the year yet, but if you haven't, now's the opportunity for you to build up anything or hype up anything that you would like to hype up for, to get attention. So the floor is yours.
We have, actually, I'm not wrestling this Saturday, but December 30th will be the last event of the year for NWA Supreme. And then, like I said, it's January 27th is the NWA Supreme Pinnacle, which is our big show we do every year.
And the triple threat tag team match with you and Draven for the...
Yeah, that'll take place on January 7th. That should be in Madison, Indiana.
So, January 7th, well, even though, December 30th, last show for NWA Supreme, January 7th is the triple threat tag team title match for the NWA Mid-American Tag Team titles, and January 27th will be NWA Pinnacle.
Yes.
So there is a lot of big events coming up for NWA Supreme, and I wish you the best of luck to become not just the Mid-American Tag Team Champions, but also the NWA World Tag Team Champions by the end of January.
Well, I appreciate that.
And as for you, the viewer, I hope you enjoyed this recap and a little bit of a return of the Indy Spotlight series. And if you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. And before we go, I'd like to thank Roger Malcom for coming back with us after a year and, catching up, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Look forward to doing it again.
Look forward to having you back.